Hey, my name is Nick, and in the month of August, I made over $100,000 using automation and make.com. I did this through a combination of coaching, consulting, making shitty jokes on YouTube, and building systems. And in this video, I want to talk about 7 of those systems that collectively make me over $200,000 per year. These are super high ROI systems that essentially form the core of my business operating system. And I'm going to share them all with you, as well as attached blueprints so you guys can take what's been working for me and then copy and paste it into your own business. If that sounds like something you guys want to do, this is the video for you. Stay tuned and let's get into it. All right, let's make this super quick. The way this video is going to work is I'm going to start by talking about some of the rationale behind the automation. Then I'm going to show you the scenario in make.com. I'm going to walk through every module. Some of these scenarios are extraordinarily long. So in those cases, I'm not actually going to walk through every module, but I'm going to show you guys the logic so you guys understand what I'm doing. And then at the very end of every automation, I'm just going to run through maybe some ways you'll need to adapt this for your own business if you're not in the exact same business model as I am. But I want you guys to know that you guys can implement the same tools and tips that I talk about here in basically any industry, whether you're a plumber, HVAC guy, or you're a freaking astronaut. I don't actually know about that one, but anyway, without further ado, let's get into it. The very first system I want to talk about is by far the simplest system, and it's just a new systems audit request to email automation that I set up a few months ago. Essentially, the problem for this is I run a automation company. It's called LeftClick. And about 4-ish months ago, I started really taking off in terms of my views, in terms of the number of people that were wanting to book meetings with me, consultations, coaching calls, that sort of thing. And, I have this website here, right? And it has a funnel where you can click to book an intro call. But essentially, after a while, I was just getting so many of these requests that it just didn't really make sense. It wasn't really feasible for me to do them myself. So I started allowing a lot of these to just fall through the cracks. And these were pretty big job requests. These were like $2,000, $3,000. I think one was $17,000 or something along those lines. So these are pretty freaking big jobs, right? But I just can't do them all because I couldn't really justify spending time on this when I personally think that the building a brand aspect of things, for me at the time anyway, was a lot higher leverage. So yeah, instead of me just allowing these to fall through the cracks, what I ended up doing strategically was I found myself a referral partner, somebody who I like, trust, respect, who could do these jobs for me to a similar level of quality to me. I mean, I think that I'm definitely one of a kind, but to a good enough level of quality that I wouldn't feel bad referring these projects out. And then I said, hey, this is your business, it's your brand. I want no association with it. All you have to do is just pay me 15% for every job that you finish. So I'm sure you guys can imagine, I'm getting about between 1 and 2 requests a day. I get a higher number of requests when my videos take off, obviously, like recently, and a lower number of requests when I'm not really posting consistently. But it averages out at about maybe like 1 to 2 requests per day. If every one of these projects is even like $2,000 or something, right? That's $60K a month. The $60K a month times 15.15% is still $7.5K. Now, I'm not actually making $7.5K because not all of these are closed, but as I'm sure you guys can imagine, this adds up over time. And I've already made quite a hefty sum with this simple referral system. So I'm going to show you guys what mine looks like here. It's very simple, and you actually don't even need 3 of these modules. But what's important for this system isn't necessarily the way that it's laid out, it's the logic behind it. So what we have is we have a little type form set up. Wrong form. When somebody wants to work with me, they click that button on my website and they get taken to this link. This link asks a bunch of questions. What's your website URL? Can you explain your company in 2 sentences? Can you do this? Can you do that? What's your current monthly revenue? How do you acquire new customers? How do you produce or fulfill your product or service? What's the best way to get a hold of you? As you can see, we are really getting them to give up their whole life. And then finally, anything extra you'd like to share before we wrap this up. Essentially, the way that this works is, you fill out this form and then you get a choice to book a calendar meeting with yours truly, or rather with my company, I should say. And that's really where the magic of this system happens, right? Like obviously the vast majority of people that are on my website, they probably watch my videos and they want to book with me, but I can't book with them physically. That said, I don't really want to say no to money, obviously, unless it is just so overwhelmingly low ROI that I have to. And this system allows me to juggle both. So here's how it works. We get the result that we just, completed. Then we sleep. We sleep for 4 minutes exactly. The reason why I sleep for 4 minutes is because I want you to put yourself in the shoes of somebody that's filling out this form. If I were hypothetically to respond instantly, you just filled out this massive form that asked you tons of information about your business. You love the work that Nick does on his channel. You really like the idea of working with him and stuff like that. Essentially, I provide white glove service with the perception of extraordinarily high quality, right? Like mid to high 4-figure or 5-figure services. You don't necessarily just want to be auto responded to. So I provide a 4-minute delay so that I give myself plausible deniability that was me or it was a machine. But it's not in the realm of like, okay, this is definitely AI generated territory. It's in the realm of like, holy shit, man, this guy has really good service to get back to me in just 4 minutes. All right, so here's where the actual system itself starts. Let me just show you guys. We then have a Typeform list responses module. If you don't know why I split it up like this, it's just because I want this to be the trigger, but I actually want to grab all the data from here just so I could test it as easily as clicking run once. When I list responses through Typeform, what I'm doing is I'm just going through all of the responses that I've ever received and then just selecting the most recent one, right? So this is just a quick and easy way for me to test without necessarily having to do all the bullshit of filling out the Typeform. Anyway, we get all the data, right, from the form like that I would have just filled out. This is just an example one I did 2 minutes ago. And then we have the set multiple variables. Let me actually rename this for the benefit of you guys. Then we have a set formatted date time module here. And all this does is it feeds in the date, so format date, and then it adds 3 minutes to this submitted at date before formatting it in this very particular structure, which I will run right now to show you guys what happens. If I run this module only, and then we just select now as the date, what we're doing is we're taking the date today, and then we're just formatting in text, basically as a string. And the reason why we're doing this is because of a very nifty email hack that I'm about to show you that makes it seem so much more human written. So I have this smart referral module here. And basically the way that it works is I will take this message and I'll email it to myself, and then I'll email it to the person that just filled out the form. And I think really here's the magic in the system. It's just the way that the copy was written. New request from company. Notice that it's a it's not like the first email. It seems like a reply. This is important because we want people to think that this is like buried in a reply. Then I say, hi, name. Nick asked me to reach out to you. We just got your audit request a moment ago for blank. I'm Example, his automation partner, and I do all of our audits and scoping. I'm going to spend half an hour later today going over your submission and putting something together before our call. Just want to say I'm looking forward to meeting you and learning a little bit more about company name. Talk soon, Example. Now you're probably wondering, wait, what the hell? Who the hell's Example? Well, Example is my referral partner. It's not me. I'm not actually doing any of this management stuff. I don't want to be involved in this. I want them to own literally 100% of the stack, and I want this to take 0% of my time and make me 50% of the money. The magic here is in this forwarded message section. What I did is I actually recreated a forwarded message, basically, so that it appears as if this is a forwarded message that I sent to my referral partner and that my referral partner is now following up on for me. So it makes it seem as if I'm really on top of my shit, essentially. And then I message my referral partner with a message. I message my referral partner with a message. I send my referral partner a message that acknowledges the fact that I'm not actually able to do this job right now, but asks them to take it on for me. Check this out. New build request for name to Example name. I have the date time here. So Tuesday, October 29th at 5:44, right? And that says, hey, Example, just following up. Blank from blank. So Peter from Left Click filled out a build request form a moment ago, but as you know, I'm slammed. You are incredible at these. Do you mind checking in with them and saying hi? If they end up needing automation help, I'll give everything a look over before you start working together. Thanks, Nick. Okay, so what have I just done here? Well, I've basically given the person that I work with plausible deniability that, they have my approval, which they do. And, I trust this person. I look over their work reasonably often, but more as like a coach, not necessarily as, somebody that's working together on a partnered project. And then afterwards, I pass off the request and I make it seem super customized so that my referral partner, has basically my support as overtly as possible without me necessarily having to jump on a call and say, hey, I really want to do this, but I need to refer you to this guy. And I do it all kind of surreptitiously so that the person on the other end of the line, right, and everybody or the vast majority of people actually read through this and they see this. But I give myself total plausible deniability. It's just like a very organic, natural way of passing this off. And this has worked really, really well so far. The benefit here is, I kind of had a couple choices here. And I'm still thinking about the best way to do this, but I could have spun up a new agency, or I could have added a bunch of people to Left Click, and I could have just worked with them and have them fulfill all of my jobs, right? But I don't really want to do that because that takes a fuck ton of time. It also takes a fair amount of fair amount of my resources. It takes energy. There's risk. Sure, I might be able to charge more money or retain more people, but I'm focusing on the YouTube stuff right now. This is my highest priority. So if I can just make 15% of anything, I'm happy. And basically what I do is I pass this off, and then it's not my brand anymore, and I don't have to be liable for any of the successes or failures, but I get to claim the wins when I get them, right? So that's how this system works. It's pretty clean. What we obviously get then is we get a booked calendar meeting with my automation referral partner and then the prospect. And then, we also get plausible deniability. I'm not usually forwarded or CC'd in on any of those emails. I don't have to deal with them or anything like that. Essentially, what I'm trying to say is it's clean as hell, which I'm pretty happy about. Now, I'm going to export this as a blueprint for you guys. Let me just connect this here. And export this. And then, just give you guys unfettered access to it. So you guys can copy and paste this into your own flows as well. Now, how you might want to use this if you're running a business model that's maybe a little bit different. There's kind of like the straightest line way to do this. This is basically a prepackaged product that you could just bring up to people. You could say, hey, how's it going? I know you're getting way too many leads. I want to take them off your hands, and I want to take them off your hands completely autonomously without giving you any risk whatsoever. And I'll just pay you 15% of whatever money that they pay me. This would work if somebody's like really drowning in gigs like I am. Probably content creators and influencers and stuff like that would probably be like the first audience that I would target for that. Or, right, you could just reach out to people in your network that already work with you or that know you or like you, and you could sort of soft pitch a system like this. It's just a way for you to share leads. You could set this up on your end when you need to give leads to them. They could set this up on their end when they need to give leads to you, and so on and so forth. But yeah, obviously this works really well for a digital agency. It works well for like local service agencies as well. I think if you're doing this for a local service agency, you'd probably want to do all of this over SMS rather than necessarily email. So that whole forwarded message section is a little bit harder. You could also forward into like a group chat or something like that and just have that group chat number say that it's your big guy, but it's not actually your big guy. Just throwing some ideas at the wall and seeing what sticks here. But yeah, that is the first system. The second system is automatic payroll management for hourly rate contractors. I essentially have figured out a way alongside my business partner and my prior company to completely automate something that used to have to require a whole finance department to do. So we run a content writing company called 1 Second Copy. It's content writing with a twist. We hire the 1% of writers, so you don't have to get high quality articles and post just 3 days. The way that this company works for context is we charge between 8 and 9 cents a word on average. I guess some of our contracts are like 12 cents a word, but anywho, it's about like 9 cents a word, which means if somebody wants a 1,000-word article written, how much do we charge? Somewhere around $90, right? And then the way that our business model works underneath the scenes, behind the scenes, is we will pay our writers an hourly rate to do the job. And we just bank on the fact that like, if we pay them an hourly rate and then we get paid for a fixed price rate, like we're going to make a little bit of money. So let's say somebody gives us a 1,000-word article. We multiply that by 0.09, that's $90. And let's say it takes a writer 2 hours at $20 US to do. That means that we make $50, right? Pretty solid. And that's about what our margins are. I scaled this to $92,000 a month way back in, I don't even really remember. I think it was March or something, like last year, maybe the year before. Man, time has passed really quickly. But basically when ChatGPT came out, obviously because you just have AI write all your shit, we lost a fair amount of interest in this business, and it's still chugging along. I just don't really think it's the highest ROI place I could put my time. So I don't really actively manage this anymore. Regardless, this is still a major problem, right? At the end of the month, or actually in our case, we do 2 payment periods. We do one on the 1st and one on the 16th. Every time a payment period comes out, how the hell, if I have 20 contractors that I'm juggling, how the hell do I know exactly how much to pay them? That task used to be a whole finance department in and of itself that you might pay like $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 to do because, their time entries coming in every single day. There are time sheets that need to be corroborated. There are a bunch of things that need to be filed. There are invoices that need to be created and managed and stored and all that stuff. Well, what we did is we created a simple payroll system, which isn't really a payroll system since it deals with contractors, but it allows us to do all of this stuff completely autonomously. It then queues up payments in our payment processor, which is Wise. And then all we do is we just click a button every single time that we want to fire off one of the payments. Here's how the system works. We use a time tracking platform called Harvest. Harvest is great. Basically, you get a little Chrome extension in the top right-hand corner of your browser, and then you just click it anytime you want to track time, and you select what the project is, the task is. So every time we receive a new article at 1 Second Copy, let's say it's X ways to, or X make automations that make me Y dollars, right? I would be able to log that really easily through my Chrome extension, and then it's just a timer. I turn it on when I work, and then I turn it off when I'm done. This gets logged to your profile in Harvest, and the benefit there is now we can interact with Harvest using their API. So the very first part of the system, and I unfortunately can't show you guys too much behind the scenes just because there's a lot of payment information here, but the very first module is the list active users. I'm not actually going to run this puppy, but basically the way this works is this just returns every user in my whole workspace. So logically, it's time for payments. We schedule this to run on the 1st and on the 16th. When it's time to go, we list every single user in our whole workspace. The next thing we do is we just do some math to set the pay period dates. This is just a way that we can get the current date, whether it's the 1st or the 16th, essentially. And then what we do after this is we will get a user record. User record just tells us something about the user. We then list the pay period time entries. This is pretty nifty, but essentially, every user has a giant list of time entries that they have filled out between those periods. And we can see, we can actually filter them based off of the from and the to date, right? So we go from the 1st to the 15th at 11:59 p.m., or from the 16th to the last day of the month at 11:59 p.m. Then we sum all of those hours up. The way that we do so is we just add hours, use the numeric aggregator sum function, which you can find right over here. Just a very quick and easy way to get a sum of like a big array of numbers. This is an aggregator and an iterator. There's an iterator, there's an aggregator. That's why you have the gray bell behind it. And then at the end, if the number of hours summed up is not equal to 0, basically, if somebody actually tracked a little bit of time, we'll generate a contractor invoice in PandaDoc. Now, what does that look like, you ask? It looks like this. We have very simple format where it says from name, from email, bill to 1 second copy, Nicholas Saraev. And then we have the actual service along with the line item rate, the invoice number, the date, the due date, all this stuff. The way that this works is what we're doing is we're pre-generating the invoices for our team members. And then we're getting them to sign off that this is something that they created using like a templating service, essentially. That way, they sent us this invoice. And then when they sign off on the invoice, that's the trigger for us to send them their money. We handle that in the second scenario here. The second scenario watches a completed PandaDoc. When it's completed, we get the invoice details from the document, which you can do just by, when you get a document, you basically get all the data in all these yellow fields, which is pretty sweet. Where am I? Then we have a little Airtable setup that includes every team member and then their hourly rate. We don't store that in our usual project manager ClickUp just because of privacy. We don't want every other team member to be able to see how much every other team member is getting paid. I love transparency, but it kind of stops over there. And then what we'll do is, every contractor, typically we work remotely, so all of them get paid in like different rates, right? Some of them get paid in CAD, others gets paid in GBP, others get paid in USD, others get paid in all sorts of currencies. So what we do is we will switch the currency type. We'll then perform a currency analysis. We'll convert it using the currency converter module. This is a pretty awesome module, by the way. I don't know if you guys have ever screwed around with this, but it just uses the European Central Bank exchange rate to find exactly how much money it is in the specified currency. And then what we do is we use Wise as our bank. So, not our bank, but our like payout bank, the bank that we hold funds that we use to pay staff members. So we will automatically create quotes and then do transactions and transfers in Wise. And then what this ends up doing is it just queues up a transaction where all we have to do is look it over and click one button, and then voila, all of the payments are taken care of completely. So this changes, the amount of work somebody would have to do on a weekly basis to keep all this running from maybe 10 hours a week or something like that to less than 30 seconds a week. We just look over everything, click one button, and then we're done. This is one of the reasons why I think that automation can add such a ridiculous amount of leverage, specifically to finances, to the financial industry, accounting, bookkeeping, and that sort of stuff, because a lot of the time data is it's not flexible, really. It's just numbers, right? Then you can add up numbers, sum numbers, divide numbers, perform routine mathematical operations on numbers and currencies in a pretty standardized format. So yeah, that's system number 2. Saves me a ton of time, energy, and money. System number 3 is also for the content agency. As you guys could see, it's pretty long. It's quite the behemoth. So I'm not going to go through every single module here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to explain how the system works. And if you guys want to learn more about this, you guys can just check the blueprint. But essentially the way that our business, the content writing company, operates is we have a ClickUp CRM or ClickUp project manager here. And inside of ClickUp, we template out projects using client records. Clients are obviously all different with what they want. They all have different style guides. They all have different writing requirements. They all have different requests, AI detector, score thresholds. They all have different everything, right? And so what we do is we use ClickUp's built-in templating features. And then we use that in conjunction with make.com to automatically template out the Google Drive folder. I really got to turn that off. The Google Drive folder, the Google Doc, we add them to Harvest automatically. We add them to a dashboard tracker. We do a bunch of math and finances and budget tracking and stuff like that. We just do all of this stuff completely autonomously under the hood. So let me show you how this works. Basically, in our ClickUp, we have executive assistants that will create client records here and then use them as templates to turn them into article records. So I wanted to add an article for example company, and I wanted to call it X make.com automations that make me Y dollars. I don't actually know if this is going to be the title of the video, so don't butcher me if it isn't. But essentially, it will automatically pull all of the data from that client. So we'll get the style guide of the client, we'll get the writing guidelines, we'll get the writer's checklist. There's some article specific information, which is usually filled in here. Make sure to do XYZ. We then have a writer to check off section. This is sort of like a checklist that the writer themselves will finish. I'll show you that in a second. Then we have some context about the client and then some AI detector scores. A lot of the time, I guess this particular client wants us to post a screenshot of the AI detector score because I think they want it under 5 or something like that. Obviously, all clients are different in how low of an AI score that they want. Some guys want 5. Some guys are totally cool if it's 50. But as we scroll down here further, we have a bunch of custom fields with like data, including the Harvest client ID. We store data from Harvest in here. We store data from Google Drive in here, Google Docs. Basically, we just use ClickUp as like our source of truth, and that's just where we put the IDs of every other platform we use, just for easy access. Anywho, then what we do is we add a due date, and then we add a target word count. And then, let me just turn on the scenario, the behemoth, and then we just change the status to ready. What ends up happening when you change to ready is it starts a flow in ClickUp that sends a webhook over to our scenario, that then updates the status for us to creating project folder, processing and all that stuff. It then logs the execution in the comment that actually includes a link. Like if I click on this, it actually includes a frickin' link to the task execution link so we could see what's going on in case there's like a debug error or something. It's one of the coolest things that I think anybody could do. Then what we do is we go through a little bit of a flow here to create a Google Drive folder. The reason for the Google Drive folder is it just allows us to obviously store all of the data that we create for this client in a specific Google Drive. Then we will actually go and create a Google Doc as well. This Google Doc uses templating functionality to take the style that the client wants. So a lot of the time, some styles are like bolded, 26 point, right? Other ones are maybe Helvetica new. The point I'm making is, clients typically want things delivered in different ways. And then we have a bunch of additional steps here where we basically just add these links to the to the ClickUp record in particular. We'll also add them to Harvest. And then we'll actually add them to our dashboard as well, where we always keep track of the word count, the total word count that we basically done, the revenue from the project. We multiply it by the rate and the estimated number of words. And then we set the budget, apply the budget to Harvest, and then we even add users to the specific projects as well. So there's a lot that goes on under the hood here. Obviously, feel free to take a look at this on your end. But essentially what you end up with after all of this stuff is said and done is you end up with a project. I just need to make sure this is still good to go. I believe this is now done, right? Yeah. We have a project now where if I scroll through here, we can see X make.com automations that make me Y per year, right? This is now in the queue or in the content pipeline that all of the rest of our staff members can see. And this is the pipeline that our staff members work off of, basically. So all they do now is they give this a click, they scroll down, and then what they do is they check out the project folder. They click on the Google Doc, right? They start tracking their time in Harvest because everything is now hooked up perfectly. And yeah, this is just a much easier and simpler way to do that. Actually, you guys could see back here, there should be a little Harvest link here, which allows you to do that time tracking automatically. So pretty cool, pretty seamless. And this system here, the way that this works and why this is valuable is because this basically completely takes over like a project management role. We have all of these things automatically done. We don't need to hire an additional project manager to do all of the organizational stuff because it's just done in ClickUp. We have everything organized in folders perfectly. Oh, geez, it's going to do another thumbs up, won't it? Okay, I'm not going to do that. We have all of the folders organized in ClickUp. We have everything in Google Drive with a big hierarchy. We have all of the budgets applied to the projects. We know exactly what our cogs are basically at every minute in time. We know what our margins are, right? We have dashboard functionality and everything like that. We basically just replaced the whole project manager in my content writing agency. So project managers in content agencies are typically referred to as editors. But essentially, we managed to save anywhere from like $3,000 a month up to $5,000 a month just by not having one of them here, which is beneficial. And you can do the math on how much money that would save you. All right, got a system that's very specific to Skool.com now. I've been using this in my business since I launched my communities, and it's been hyper valuable. Basically, a big problem in my community, MakeMoneyWithMake.com, is look at this number over here in the right-hand side. It says 400 members, right? Basically, the value of this is Skool doesn't have a waitlist feature built in. There's no way to create a cap of 400 and then to have people apply to a waitlist. And then when one person leaves, have somebody else automatically come in. So I guess like 4 or 5, maybe even 6 months ago. No, I guess it was like 4 months ago. I was having to do all of that automatically. I would actually have to wake up every morning and I would check to see what the number or member count was. And if it had dipped below 400, I'd have to go through my Stripe and find the last person and then invite them manually to my group. I counted up the amount of time that this took me, and it was anywhere between like 45 minutes, like an hour and a half every single day, because sometimes people would leave in the middle of the day and then a new spot would open up, right? It was more so just the stress of making sure that this number was always 400 or 401 or 402. It fluctuates from time to time, depending on whether I invite like assistants in and that sort of thing. But I decided that, I had enough of it, and I said, screw it, I'm going to build my own system that manages this for me. The way that this works is we have this, it's a scraping database essentially, but I'm going to leave the 2 first columns here as small just because that contains like, information of the people that have signed up. But essentially every time somebody signs up for a wait list, and in this case, I'm at sheet 2 here, which is only tracking annual memberships, but we have one for monthly memberships as well. Basically, anytime somebody signs with a wait list for a monthly or an annual membership, we have this amount column, which tracks the amount of money that they paid. We have a payment method ID column, which tracks the payment method. Then we have a waitlist date column. And then every time that they come in, what I do is I run this scenario here, which will automatically bill them, and then it will invite them to Skool, assuming that there is a spot open in my group. If there's no spot open in the group, it'll just automatically turn off. So that wasn't a very clear explanation. So let me just show you guys this a little more practically. As you can see, we have a ton of records here with a bunch of different statuses. Some are paid, some are trialing, some are paid, some requires payment method. Basically, when you want to sign up to my program, you go to MakeMoneyWithMake.com, and then you click Join Waitlist here. And then you fill out, your information here, right? You add your card number. What happens when that occurs is, a request gets sent over to a webhook that tracks all of this stuff. Now, the issue is sometimes people put in the wrong card number, or sometimes their card number doesn't have any, or their card doesn't have any funds in it, right? So what my system does is it accounts for that by intelligently checking to see whether or not that card has funds available by making a small little transaction. And then assuming that the transaction, goes through, it proceeds down a pretty logical pipeline of following up with them, sending them invoices automatically or manually, sending them emails to be like, hey, how are things going? Have you taken a look at this invoice yet? Basically, it allows us to extract the vast majority of value of the waitlist members, even if their cards don't necessarily work, while also just completely taking care of the whole waitlist feature. So this is the scenario this is one of the scenarios anyway. This is the one that actually does my waitlist management totally autonomously. And I'll run you through how it works. Basically, what I'll do is every hour, I'll queue up HTTP call to my own community's page on Skool. And what happens when you do an HTTP call to your community is you end up with this big, long chunk of HTML. Now, somewhere buried in this HTML is the member count. I believe it's like right over here, or maybe, so it's right over here. And it's always basically in the same place, which means you can easily parse out this data, right? You know that the span is going to be at the beginning. We're going to have a 3-digit number, unless I have 301 people leave tomorrow or something like that. And then we have a less than symbol with an exclamation point and then like 2 dashes. Like basically the point that I'm making is you can very easily parse that data consistently, right? So I parse this data and then I get to see whether or not the member count, in this case, I was doing 402 because I had a couple of assistants that were part of the group. These assistants, I was not getting them to pay me or anything like that. They were just people that were creating content for me and that sort of thing. But essentially, if the member count is below 402, I proceed with the rest of my flow. The very first thing I do is I will search all of these rows for anything with a status of trialing. Trialing is just the term referred to when you sign up to a subscription, but you haven't fully been billed yet. I think it's Stripe specific. If it finds something, then I'll go into Stripe and I'll retrieve the customer. I'll then create an invoice item. This invoice item will be for my community. I'll then create an invoice. I'll then finalize my invoice, and then I'll confirm the payment intent. This actually charges their card. Then next, I have sort of two routes here. I have a paid route and then a not paid route. This charge can fail. That's why I have a resume module attached to it. If it fails, what I'll do is I'll update the status from trialing to trialing manual invoice or trialing follow-up one or something of that nature, depending on the specifics of what the error message was. If it's a manual invoice, I'll then follow up with them. I'll send them an email basically saying, hey, bro, how's it going? I saw that you tried to fill out this thing. I saw that it didn't work. Here's a manual invoice that I'm sending you immediately. If you could just take care of this, I will add you to the group right after. And in that way, like a big issue that I had at the beginning is people would sign up for this plan, which is, it's not a low amount of money. It's like almost $1,500 US, something like that for a yearly subscription. So it's a fair amount of money. People are obviously committed to it. They wanted to get in, but then something would happen. Their card details wouldn't be right, or maybe there'd just be some issue with, the card balance. They didn't have enough money to pay that one time. They need to reload their balance or something of that nature. And then I would find out about it the next day. And then I'd be like, oh shit, hey man, here's a manual invoice that should help top you up. But, after the whole 24 hours have gone by, either they're sort of, worried, or they have like some sort of self-doubt that's come in, or maybe their spot has been taken and there's just no more room in the group, right? Whatever the point is, I had a much lower conversion rate on the people that entered in card information for cards that didn't work. When I switched over to this method where I could instantly notify people with a manual invoice the second that there was some failure, my rate shot up from what it was previously, which is maybe like 40% of those actually ended up paying, to something along the lines of 70, 80%. And the people that don't pay via manual invoice this time also get followed up with consistently. So what I'll do is, I'll check this sheet, and then if it still says follow up one, then I'll follow up again. Right. And then eventually some of these records go to rejected, which is just where the person doesn't want to work with me at all. But this is a pretty cool and simple way to automate a large portion of the manual process that I had before. And it's this autonomous waitlist management system. So I know not everybody here runs a Skool community, probably very few of you. And I know even fewer of you probably implement some sort of like strict waitlist at a certain number of members that you need to bill using Stripe. I'm still going to include this blueprint though, because I think it's just important for you guys to get visibility into how I build these flows. And if anybody has any questions about that, just let me know. My next system is one of the highest ROI systems that I've ever built. I believe at this point it's probably inspired like several hundred other similar systems. So if you've already heard of this sort of flow, I wouldn't be surprised. But essentially what I do is I will use a type form as an input during a sales call. I'll fill out a couple of quick little pieces of information about the prospect during said sales call. Then I click a button. The second that I click the button, it'll actually go through, use AI to generate a proposal, generates milestones and timelines, and then even generates a whole PandaDoc proposal for me, which looks really clean. So I'm going to run you guys through what my system looks like from top to bottom. Essentially what I have here is I have a discovery call form. When I am selling the client, first thing I'll be like, hey man, so sorry, your name was Nick, right? What's the best email for you? Nick@leftclick.ai? Okay, thank you. Great. And that was left click, right? Okay, beautiful. And then I will track the outcome of the call, right? If the outcome is that I want to send in a proposal, what I need to do is I need to paste in a 1-sentence description of their business. So maybe Left Click is an automation firm that specializes in cold email outreach systems. What's the problem? Right now, Left Click is trying to grow their YouTube. They're using scripts and let's just say a teleprompter in order to do so. But it's costing them a ton of time and energy managing script writers. They don't like this because it's pricey, takes a long turnaround time, and the quality of their scripts tend to be pretty low because they work with more affordable contractors. So basically somebody will tell me these problems that they're suffering from and I'll just write them down. I just made this up, right? But I'll write them down just as they're doing it. I can write this down as bullet points. I could write this down basically however I want. The point is I just do it while I'm on the call with them to maximize or minimize the friction, make it just really quick and easy for me. The next question is proposed solution. So they want a streamlined content generation system that automatically writes whole scripts for them. They want a way to put in an example script and then have the script, let's say alongside, this is an actual project I built, funnily enough, alongside a brief with title, keywords, etc., and then have the script emulate said example while being different enough to realistically record a video on. They then want a way to I don't know, format this so they can upload it to their Parrot teleprompter app, aka a Google Doc. Cool. So I've actually done this exact system. What are the platform services you'll use during development? Google Docs, because Parrot accepts .docx natively, hypothetically. Let's do Typeform because it's simple, and PandaDoc, no, sorry, not PandaDoc, and GPT-4o because it's the best and most affordable AI content writing tool out there right now. How long will the project take? 2 weeks. How much you want to charge them? $3,895. Any additional costs from platforms? Let's just say $50. Great, then I'll actually submit this. And what happens after I submit this is I feed into my flow, which actually goes and then it creates a Google Doc, a PandaDoc using all this information. And it actually just ran a second ago. So discovery call form entry, then pulled out the details of my form, and then it passes through an AI generation step, which generates the proposal. This step looks like this. I'm using an old, actually, GPT-4 model here. I'm not using the newest one. But we're an operations agency that builds outreach systems, CRM system, project management systems, no-code systems, and integrations. Below is a loose scope. Turn that scope into a high-quality proposal in JSON. Our clients are enterprise, so write in a smart and no-frills tone that applies intelligence. We are then feeding in a bunch of JSON and then getting a couple of examples here. This is using my user assistant, JSON design pattern, which I just talked about in my previous video. If you're unfamiliar with that, then just go back one video and I'll explain it all. Before I finally feed in the brief, which is business description, problem, solution, and tools. It then generates the output, and then I parse it in JSON. And I will show you guys what this looks like in a second. But in addition, we have the milestones, the timelines that we generate. This is just a quick and easy way for us to seem as if we've scoped this project out, maybe a little more than we actually have. We parse the JSON there too, and voila, we have a bunch of timelines. And then we actually go through the PandaDoc step. We create the document in PandaDoc. So that's pretty cool. Let me see if I could find this document somewhere. Should be right over here. And this is what the end result looks like. Streamlined content generation for left-click's YouTube growth. So it even picked a title for us, which is pretty nice. For left-click Nick Saraev, by left-click Nick Saraev. This is because I used my own business name. But then we have a big problem page here with some specific issues that essentially are enterprise level paraphrases of the exact problems that I entered earlier. So your current script writing process is inefficient and costly. At left-click, you're relying heavily on script writers to write content for your YouTube channel. This approach isn't just costly, it's also time-consuming due to long turnaround times, occasional quality issues. It's clear this approach doesn't scale well. It's not the most effective use of your resources. Number 2, you need a new approach. You're seeking an innovative way of producing scripts, one that replaces human-involved automation, a solution that's efficient, cost-effective, delivers high-quality results. How do we do it? I'll build you a tailored content generation system using GPT-4o. This AI content writing tool is widely regarded as the best and most reasonably priced on the market. You'll be able to input an example script and a brief, including title and keywords, and AI will generate a unique script so that it aligns with the example, but includes ample variations for distinct video content. Next, I'll create an automated workflow that saves scripts to Google Docs, right? Pretty sick. Right now, the way that I set this up is just to save this as a draft, not necessarily send. And then what I'll sometimes do is I'll actually go and I'll pull from a bank of like whimsical images that I've pre-saved for different templated products. I didn't do that in this case, but it's something that you can do as well. And then, this is a templated proposal. So I have a bunch of case studies. I have a timeline section here. And then down here, I have the pricing. Pricing includes the dollar amount that I quoted earlier, along with a price for the software fees. I don't actually charge the software fees. Obviously, I just pass them through to my customer and my customer pays for them. I then have a little contract set up with an agreement, which is quite nice, I like to think. So this system does this all autonomously. At the very end, I even go as far as sending an email that says, hey, Nick, I just sent over a detailed services proposal for left-click a moment ago in PandaDoc. For clarity, the platform charges section is approximate. These are fees paid to the vendor, so any price changes or taxes are out of my control. That said, they should be fairly accurate. As of today, upon signing, you'll receive a payment request with the first 50% deposit directly in-app, the sum under this amount. Afterwards, we can book a kickoff call and I'll begin in earnest. If you have any other cues, let me know. Enjoy the rest of your day. Cheers, Nick. If you got that along with the proposal that's that customized from somebody within 5 minutes of finishing a call with them, and you're planning on working with them for automation services, you'd probably be at least a little bit impressed, right? That's sort of the way the system works. So It's hard for me to say exactly how much attributable income I have made because of this, but it's definitely been a few $100,000. There was a point where I was banging out 5 or 6 of these proposals a day. My calendar was just call after call after call after call. And if you were doing this in a manual sort of format, there is no way you'd be able to stick to even half the quality of a proposal system like this while also maintaining volume like that, right? So this sort of allows you to get best of both worlds. And, I've shared this sort of system before. I'm going to copy over the blueprint and then share it with you guys again here. But you can vary the system, or you can implement the system in any sort of business. The only requirement is you need to have some sort of sales call. As long as you have a form that inputs structured info though, and then you use GPT-4 to expand that or summarize that or take that to the next level, you're basically good. All right, this next system is a simple and easy hiring system that I've built out in ClickUp. I've talked about this from time to time, but I've never really given it its due diligence, I would say. And what I'm going to do in this video is just show you how this works. So I'm hypothetically hiring for a role here, a video editor. And what I've done is I've set up a pipeline in ClickUp that allows me to track incoming applicants. The way that this works is we have a couple of different type forms. The first type form is the general application form. What we do is we go on Upwork, or we go on, Indeed or something of that nature, and then we just copy and paste this form link. And then people will go onto this form link, and then they will read through it, fill out their information, and then that'll add them to our ClickUp. So first and foremost, it's not necessarily like the make.com scenario that's the magic here, but there's a fair amount of juice just in the way the application is set up that I should run you guys through as well. This saves us from having to have like somebody to do HR, because we can just very quickly skim through qualified applicants and deal with them automatically. It also allows us to get a slightly cheaper rate because applicants will self-select their prices, which I'll talk about as well. So the first question is, what role are you applying for? This way, this form is general. We don't necessarily need to swap out the link. We just use the same form link for everything. And then who is Nick Saraev? This is me hiring for my own company. So what I always recommend you do is give somebody a breakdown of your business and tell them to browse their channel or their website for context. You want to make them think that obviously they're going to be tested on this in some respect, that this is important information that they need to know. You don't want to scare them, but you do need to make sure that if somebody's actually going to spend the time to fill out this proposal or fill out this form, that they've at least done enough due diligence to tell you roughly what your business is about. Then we have contact details, and then the most important part is the portfolio. So before proceeding, we'd like to see some examples of your work. If you don't have a portfolio, you can put one together in Google Doc or Google Drive and then link it here. If you do this, make sure that sharing settings are on. You would be surprised at how many people leave the sharing settings off. We then are hiring in a variety of regions: Canada, US, Philippines, Australia, EU, and then other. So we ask for that. Then we have a start date, which is the soonest they're able to begin. Some weekly availability, which is important because sometimes we want people that work more, sometimes we want people that work less, and sometimes we want them to be flexible. And then we have an hourly rate, the desired hourly rate in USD. The reason why asking for an hourly rate is so important is because most people will compete with themselves. Most people will see this, and then if they were planning on charging $25, they charge $24. It's a very small, very, very small improvement to your margin, but it's an improvement nonetheless. Like using that previous example, if somebody is about to charge 25 and then they see this and they're like, oh, geez, they're probably going to be comparing rates. And then they put $24 in here, you've essentially just made 4% on your payroll costs. And if your payroll costs are, 30% of your business, like many companies are, that's 4 times 30. You basically just improved your margin by a whole 1.2% for free. So this costs you nothing to include. You're going to include this on like the job platform anyway, but logically speaking, just having people put their hourly rates in here is just a great way to shave off a few percentage points, and then just like keep your business as profitable as possible. Also, to imply that like this isn't the sort of company where you're just going to come in and slack off, look at the clock, and then get a paycheck. We want people to put their best foot forward and actually earn the money that they make. The reason why I may seem a little bit jaded and hard about this is just because I've ran basically a contracting agency for several years now. And there are a lot of people that will just try and use you like, automatic free paycheck. Remote work can be difficult like this. The sweet spot is not pretending like you are looking over their shoulder the entire time while they work, but to have systems that essentially allow you to obtain that same amount of information if you really wanted to. Anywho, after they fill out this form, we have a next step section. At these next steps, what happens is we add them to the sheet, right? And then what we can do is we can change their status from new applicant to, like request trial. What happens when we move them to request trial is I will send them an email using this scenario here. This scenario catches a webhook from ClickUp. ClickUp allows you to send webhooks anytime that you change a status. We'll then get the task and then we'll send an email. The email will look like this. Game to do a paid trial. Hey blank, we really liked your portfolio. I'd love to have you put together a paid trial clip for us. Below is a link to a form which explains the trial, gives you a brief, and tells you to upload the finished product. Remember to invoice us when you're done. Then we have the form. You'll notice that we're adding a bunch of custom information to this form, including the location, the rate, the email, and then the task ID. This actually ends up customizing the form and makes it a lot easier for us to deal with later. Then we change the status of the task to reflect the fact that, we just sent them a trial request. We're waiting for them to do the trial. And then the trial actually looks something like this. Now, this is for a role that we were hiring called Automator. First thing we ask them is to track their time using Clockify or another time tracking app. If they reach a 2-hour mark and have yet to finish the piece, shoot us an email before you continue. This just ensures that because, we do a paid trial approach, we want people to show us their actual work, not just like jump on a call with us and, sell us on themselves before we actually know what they're capable of. We're going to pay them for this, right? But I don't want to pay somebody 15 hours for a project that I don't end up using. So I say, if you've reached 2 hours and you haven't done yet, send us an email. And if they send us an email, I'm basically saying, all right, well, you're not a fit because this project shouldn't take you more than 2 hours. Your task is to create a simple make.com email autoresponder. Here's a brief of your position and sort of like the context. I'm asking for some business knowledge here. And then record a Loom video. I actually record a Loom of walking through their system. That's what I request. How much time did this take you? I don't request a blueprint, by the way, because a lot of companies will do this. They'll just try and farm blueprints off of people, which is very silly. How much time did it take you? And then nice work, time to send us an invoice. What happens after that step is, when they fill it out, I'll catch the form fill in this scenario. And then after it's caught, I will go back into ClickUp, edit it, and then I'll thank them for the trial video and tell them to send an invoice. Their status will then change to review trial. I'll then review their trial, which exists in a column called trial video URL over here. Then if it's good enough, I'll actually go onboarding and I'll either jump on a call with them really quickly, or I'll just add them to my Slack immediately and then start working with them. This is a much higher ROI, much faster way of doing hiring. I'm not wasting hours of my life talking to people that seem like they're great, but I just have better sales skills than the actual skills I'm looking for. If I'm hiring a sales role, then that's awesome. But most of the time I'm not hiring a sales role, so it doesn't really make sense for me, right? You can adapt this sort of system to any industry, whether it's, some local services business, whether it's digital remote, whether you're hiring SaaS staff members, software engineers. The point is just always going to be the same. You essentially start with some sort of application form, which standardizes the data. And then you select people based off their portfolio, based off their skills, and then give them a trial that allows them to show you exactly what they're actually going to be doing in your business, not just, talking off your ear. But yeah, that's another really high ROI system. Saves me thousands of dollars every single month on wasted hires, people that are like low ROI, inefficient, and on like having a staff member that actually needs to check all this stuff, which is pretty sweet. All right, the last system, I actually just showed it in the previous video, but since I have now found so much ridiculous value in it, I think this system, which essentially is like a video idea creator for YouTube, I think this is probably going to make me or save me the most amount of money moving forward, just because opportunity cost is my big problem. And it's been quite difficult finding video ideas that actually work, to be honest. Anywho, if you haven't seen my last video, this is the way that it works. I essentially will go through my YouTube channel and then I will scrape every single comment that has ever been left on my YouTube. I do that using a platform called Appify, which gives you $5 in free credits. That's equal to about 2,000 YouTube comments right up front. We will then filter through all of the Appify dataset items. If it's a real comment, aka if the length is over like 5 characters or something, we'll then feed it into GPT-4 with a prompt like, we're looking for content ideas. Below is a YouTube comment on one of our videos. Your task is to determine if the comment is relevant and if it includes questions, inquiries, or suggestions that we can use as an idea for future video. Return the results in JSON using the following format. So basically what this does is it allows me to very quickly and easily go through all of my comments and then just identify which ones request or suggest or inquire about, something that I could use as a content idea. After we've verified, right, if the status is true, then we continue down this route. And then I have another model that actually creates a hook and an outline. This hook and outline is not amazing. It's not perfect or anything, but it helps eliminate like the blank page syndrome that is so common anytime you're doing content creation. Afterwards, it adds this to a Google Sheet here. And I'm currently going through this Google Sheet myself. You can see we've done about 2,000 so far. I still have another 5,000 or so content ideas to go through. I just didn't want to, spend like 40,000 ops that one that one day. But then I just go through this and then I pick out the ideas that make sense to me, the ones that I want to answer. And this essentially becomes my content calendar moving forward, which is pretty high ROI. So the way that you can change this is, depending on whatever business model you're running, whether it's like a video business like mine, maybe you're writing like blogs, maybe you're doing some sort of like photo business stuff on Pinterest, you can scrape whatever the data sources that you're competing on. So if you're competing on Medium, maybe you could scrape Medium posts. If you're competing on, as I mentioned, Pinterest, you could scrape Pinterest comments. You could pass them through a filter just like this. You could identify whether they're asking for something or whether they basically contain an idea that you could use to do something with. And then you could use them, feed in a couple of rules, like how to create an effective title or effective piece of content. But then you could use them to like train a model, like in context, train a model to come up with ideas, titles, hooks, outlines, hell, even whole pieces of content if we're just talking text and photo. Pretty soon you'll be able to come up with video content too. I mean, I'm sure you guys can imagine if I trained like a HeyGen model or something like that on me, obviously it wouldn't be anywhere near as expressive and it would probably be even more uncanny valley than I am. But, if I had an outline and a hook and a whole script and I had to read it off, it would actually do like a pretty passable job right now. So yeah, obviously video is one thing that is probably not going to be fully surmounted for the next few months, but this is a good and quick and easy way that you can get up and running with a system like this. All right, I hope you guys appreciated that video. I had a lot of fun putting it together. These are the 7 Make.com automations that collectively make me over $200,000 a year, and you can find every single one of their blueprints down below in the description. Just check out the Gumroad. If you guys like this sort of content, I also do tons of coaching and consulting on how to get your very first customer with a Make.com or automation business. You can check that out. It's also in the description called Maker School. Otherwise, you guys could do me a big solid. Leave a comment down below for my comment scraper to pick up and then turn into an idea next week. Like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff for the YouTube algo, and I'll catch you on the next video.